Hi there. This video is going to be all about the sweeper truck here at Nelts, what its controls do, and good practices so you can be efficient with your time. So, before we start talking about techniques and how to drive the truck around, we'll start with the basics. What do the controls and the buttons do? The control panel here, which is sat beside you in where a center console would be in a regular car, houses all of the controls for the engine of the sweeper truck. So everything related to operating the sweeper truck's specific controls are going to be here. And we'll start with the first thing, which is just turning it on. What you're going to do first is move the throttle all the way down to its lowest setting, which in this case would be all the way forward. Next, you'll turn the key and ignite the engine. Now that the engine of the sweeper truck is on, you can turn the throttle up or pulling it back until the tachometer that's there reads about 2500. That tends to be the sweet spot for efficient use. This tends to be when you pull the throttle about halfway up, so use that as a starting point and adjust it as needed so you can hover around 2500. All right, so now that the sweeper truck's on, let's go over what all of the controls do. The first one here on the left will control the brush. Pushing the button down will cause the brush to lower and start spinning. To raise the brush, simply push and hold the button up. You may have to double click the upward position on this button to get it to go all the way up. So just double check that it's all the way up before exiting the vehicle, and if it's not, then continue to raise it. The second button controls the head of the sweeper. This is the big bar in the middle of the truck that lowers down to the ground and sucks up all of the debris that you end up driving over. Controlling this specific part of the truck takes a little bit of practice and technique, so please practice this before you head out for the first time. So to lower the head, you'll push the button down, but to get it into the sweet spot, you're going to need to press and hold it for about 3 seconds. So press and count 3 seconds and then release. If you had the correct timing, then it should be loose, going all the way down to the ground and be sucking up all of the debris. If you pushed it too little, then it won't be all the way to the ground and it won't be properly sucking stuff up. If you pushed it too much, then the tube that connects it to the engine will be disconnected and you'll have to reset it. In both of these scenarios, you should just reset it. To do this and to pull it back up, press and hold the button in the upward position for about 5 seconds so it'll have plenty of time to completely raise up. So, this technique of pressing and holding it for 3 seconds to get it in the sweet spot might cause you some trouble initially, but after doing it a couple times, getting a little practice, it'll be second nature. This same control button also controls the hopper that's in the back of the truck, which is the big bin that everything gets sucked up into. If you want to raise the hopper, push and hold the button in the upward position after the head is all the way up. This will slowly raise the hopper of the truck and tilt it back as well. You can use this to empty it, which we'll go over at the end of the video. And as you could probably assume, to lower it, just push and hold the button in the downward position. Now moving on to the third control, which is water. Pressing this button down will spray water underneath the truck in front of the sweeper's head. Using water in the truck is rather rare, so it probably won't be filled by default when you get into the truck for the day. So if you plan on using water, then make sure that it's filled up. To fill up the water, you can just open up the tank from the screw top right here and fill it up with a hose. It's really that simple. The fourth control will turn on and off the light that shines onto the broom on the left side of the truck. This will illuminate the ground on and around the broom so that you can have some easy visibility while you're cleaning in the nighttime. And when you want to turn it back off, just click it back up. The last button will turn on and off the amber flashing lights that are on top of the truck. You should see to turn these amber flashing lights on when you are on a site and make sure to turn them off when you get off of the site. This button is quite simple. Click it down to turn them on and then back up to turn them off. So, now that we're over the basic functions of all the controls, I'll go over some good practices to use while driving a sweeper truck around. First, the best way to use the sweeper truck for efficient use. The best way to use the sweeper truck is with the brush and the head down at the same time. Using one without the other is rather counterintuitive. The brush will move everything around, and then the head will sweep it on up. They work in tandem. Second thing to consider is the speed of the truck. It's best to stay around 10 miles an hour or 2,000 RPM while you're driving around sweeping a site. Going much slower would just take up a lot more unnecessary time, and going much faster would cause it to be inefficient, and you may have to drive over the same areas twice. So just try your best to hover at that sweet spot of 10 miles an hour or 2,000 RPM. And another thing to consider while you're sweeping a site is the route in which you're driving around. If it is still business hours and there are people there at the site, then you're not going to have a lot of options regarding this, as it is very important to not damage anybody's cars or hit people or get in people's way. So you don't have a whole lot of options if you're doing a site early in the evening. So if it is still business hours, you can focus on using the sweeper truck in areas where people aren't, like at the end of the parking lot and around the back, and then you could manually pick the areas in which there are a lot of people. Should you be doing it in the nighttime though, when there aren't people there, you have infinite options in which to drive around because there aren't any people there and any cars that would get in your way. So when planning on how to drive the truck around, it's best to use the left side of the truck as the primary focus because that's where the brush is and that's where you, the driver, have the highest visibility. It's best to drive making left turns around little curbs and embankments, so you can plan how you're going to drive around using that information. Using this map as an example, you could drive up and down the long way, making use of the left side of the brush to sweep alongside the curb lines and all these islands. Planning how you drive and making good use of the left side of the truck and the brush will save you a lot of time and effort, making efficient use of your time. And last, some additional notes. First up, if you should be driving along some poking out trees or bushes, you need to be aware of any branches that might be poking out. See that your window is closed before you go in close to sweep up those areas. And if it's necessary, you can also fold in the mirror as well. This will probably be necessary if you are sweeping alongside the side of a cart corral. And lastly, we're going to be going over cleaning the truck, which you are going to need to do every day at the end of your shift. First, you're going to head over to the area at your shop that is designated for dumping out all of the debris you picked up. First, you're going to need to open up this flap that covers the opening of the hopper, and you can do that by unlatching the beam, raising it up, and then locking it in place so it's open. Then you can return to the truck and lift up the hopper using that second button. You're going to want to go around to the back of the truck and see that all of the debris has fallen out. If there's still some stuff stuck in there, you can use a shovel or a broom to sweep out the remaining bits that might be caught on the corners. Now that you've dumped most of your stuff, you can lower the hopper back down and drive away. Next up on the cleaning process, you're going to wash out the hopper of the truck using pressurized water. So head over to your shop's designated location for doing so. It's generally good practice to have a bucket loader or something down below the back of the hopper to catch the debris that's going to fall out. So see that you're doing so. You're going to raise up the hopper again, have the hatch open, and you can start spraying to clean it. Use the pressurized water to clean out all of the areas in the hopper and see that it falls into the bucket below to catch it. Need to make extra care to clean out the grate that's on the top here from your point of view, as that is the primary ventilation spot for the hopper and the engine. So if there's a whole bunch of stuff stuck in there, it's not going to run well. Be sure to clean the underside of the flap here, as that spot can be forgotten and it tends to build up an unsightly amount of gunk. While the hopper is up, you can check this spot on the engine to see if there's anything stuck in there, like maybe a paper or tissues. You need to be absolutely sure that the engine is not on and running, because this is where it sucks air in from, and you don't want anything of your own to get sucked in there. Once you are done cleaning, you're going to want to make sure that you pull the hose away, because you don't want to drive over it. The connecting hose for the sprayer that we use can tend to be fragile, So it's good practice to just not drive over it at all in the first place. And once you're all done cleaning, you can lower the hopper, close the hatch, and go and park your truck. And you should tend to the debris that you had fall into the bucket there. Since it is fallen into the bucket, it's a lot easier to clean up than if it just fell onto the floor. You can't be leaving it for somebody else to clean up. And that's going to be about it for operating the sweeper trucks. If you want to rewind to any specific section, the timeline below will have chapters and timestamps that are labeled, so it'll be nice and easy to do so.